You've heard it a million times, right? Live by faith. You just need to have more faith. We throw that word around all the time. But what if I asked you, right now, to actually define it? What is it? Well, what if I told you there's a clear, four-step pattern to what faith really is, kind of hidden in plain sight? Let's break it down.
Yeah, see, when you really try to pin it down, that word faith, it can suddenly feel a little abstract, right? A nice idea for sure, but what does it actually mean to walk by faith, day in and day out? It kind of feels like something we're all supposed to have, but nobody ever handed us the instruction manual.
Well, it turns out that instruction manual might have been there all along. If you look closely at Hebrews chapter 11, the famous hall of faith, you start to see this pattern. It shows up over and over again in the lives of these spiritual giants, a clear four-step process.
And here they are, super simple. It starts with a revelation, which leads to an action. That action creates tension, which finally calls for trust. Revelation, action, tension, trust. So let's dive in and see what that actually looks like.
All right, so step 1, the absolute starting point for any journey of faith is revelation. This is where it all kicks off. And here's the first huge, game-changing idea. Faith doesn't start with you trying to muscle up enough belief. It's not about clenching your fists and just trying really, really hard. No, it starts when God reveals something specifically to you. It's not about manufacturing a feeling. It's about receiving a personal word, a direction, a deep sense of knowing.
I mean, just look at the examples. For Noah, it was a warning about a flood, something he'd never even seen before. For Abraham, it was a call to just pack up and leave everything he knew. Sarah got this totally impossible promise about having a child. And Rahab, she just heard a story about God's power and knew deep down that it was true. See, every single one was unique and personal.
Okay, so if faith really starts with hearing, that kind of leads to a pretty challenging question for you and me, doesn't it? Are we actually, really, creating any space in our lives to listen?
And this right here, this just perfectly illustrates the problem. There was a study suggesting the average Christian spends about 30 hours a year in the Bible. But get this, they spend over 2,000 hours on their phone. Now look, that's not to make anyone feel guilty. It's just a reality check. Our brains are getting input all day long. The real question is, which voice are we tuning into?
So after you get that revelation, what's next? Step 2, action. This is where faith stops being just a thought and starts getting its hands dirty.
You see, a real revelation always demands a response. It calls you to do something, to move from the internal to the external, and usually it's a step away from what feels safe and comfortable and straight into the unknown. Let's be honest, it's almost always going to feel uncomfortable.
And we're not talking about small things here. Noah didn't just have a nice thought about an ark. He had to build the thing for 100 years. Abraham had to literally pack up his entire life and just go. Moses had to walk away from the most powerful empire on the planet. Every single one of them was called to do something that, to anyone looking from the outside, seemed completely insane.
So let me ask you, what's that thing in your life right now that feels a little crazy, a little risky? Maybe it even feels like you'd be taking a step backwards to do it. That feeling of stepping into the totally unfamiliar? That's often a sign that you're heading in the exact right direction.
And that uncomfortable action, well, it leads us directly to step 3. And honestly, this is often the hardest, most grueling part of the whole thing. We're talking about the tension.
So what is the tension? It's that space, that gap between your yes and the final outcome. It's the time between when you obey and when you actually see the promise come to life. Think of it like the waiting room of faith. And let me tell you, it's in that waiting room that your belief gets truly tested. It's like a pressure cooker designed to forge real trust. It's not a bug in the system, it's a feature.
Because in that gap, in that tension, that's when the questions start, right? The initial hype fades, the reality of your action hits you, and you're just left there in the quiet wondering, did I really hear God? Did I do the right thing? Is God really who he says he is?
And man, these biblical heroes lived in some massive tension. Can you imagine getting mocked by your neighbors for 100 years while you build a giant boat? Or living your whole life as a wanderer, holding on to a promise for a home you never even get to see? Rahab literally risked her life. The tension is real, and there's just no way around it. It's a non-negotiable part of the process.
So you get the revelation, you take the action, you endure the tension, and that brings us to the final step. Trust the results. But, and this is a big but,
this step might not be what you're expecting.
See, the goal, the final step, it isn't actually about getting the specific thing you were hoping for. The real prize is arriving at this place of deep, settled trust in the character of God, no matter the outcome. It's choosing to believe He is good and faithful, even when you can't see the full picture.
And we have to be super clear about this. This is not a magic formula. It is not, if I do A, B, and C, then God gives me D. I mean, read the rest of Hebrews 11. Some of these heroes of faith were imprisoned. They were tortured. Their faith wasn't a tool they used to get a result. Their faith, that deep, unwavering trust in God Himself, was the result.
Okay, so if the whole point is trusting God's character, not just the outcome, what does this journey actually look like for us today? Let's bring this down from theory to practice.
Let's use a modern example. Maybe you feel a calling to start something new, a YouTube channel, writing a book, whatever. The revelation is that initial idea. The action is doing the work, recording, publishing, when you have no audience and zero guarantee it'll work. And the tension? That's the long year of grinding away, seeing almost no growth, and constantly asking yourself, is this even making a difference?
You know, we all expect the path of faith to be this clean, straight line to success. But the reality? Oh man, it's messy. It's a tangled scribble. It's a daily choice to just get up and try again, to make more good choices than bad, and to keep coming back to that initial revelation, even when you feel like a total mess yourself.
And when you see it this way, faith suddenly stops being some vague theoretical concept. It becomes a tangible, actionable journey. And you realize the whole process isn't really about getting things from God, but about getting to know God.
So what's your first step? Well, it just loops right back to the beginning. Can you carve out just 5 minutes today? Put the phone down, before the noise of the day rushes in, and just sit. Listen. Create a little space for a revelation. Because the greatest journey of your life might be waiting on the other side of that 5 minutes of silence.